Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another Startup Canada webinar of the Women Entrepreneur Series that is coming to an end. For those that haven't participated in this webinar series before, Startup Canada launched the Women Entrepreneur Program to provide support during COVID-19, but also to provide general guidance to entrepreneurs in starting and scaling their businesses and all the moving parts that this implies. For those that don't know me, I'm Maria Ponte, Program Manager at Startup Canada. I'm delighted to present here Dr. Allan Riding today. Dr. Riding has held the rank of full professor at the Deloitte Professorship and in the management of growth enterprises at the University of Ottawa. He's part of a team of researchers at the Telfer School of Management, whose work includes understanding the links between financial literacy among owners of small businesses. Dr. Allan is regarded as an international authority of small businesses financing. His projects include working with Innovation, Science, Economic Development Canada, with BDS, as well as with the OECD in Israel and Russia as a member of the small team of experts consultant to government. So that's very impressive, Dr. Riding, and we feel honored, as I told you before we went to air. We are very honored to have you here today. It definitely takes courage to start a new firm. It takes a lot of faith and confidence, and we see that every day here in Startup Canada with our audience and all of the entrepreneurs that are part of our network. It is important for entrepreneurs to understand their level of financial knowledge. And today's webinar, Professor Riding is going to highlight findings from Telfer research, as well as findings from his involvement with Scotiabank Women Initiative research about financial literacy among women entrepreneurs. So Professor Riding, it's a delight to have you here sharing all your knowledge about this fundamental aspect of business. And I will pass things over you to give a brief introduction of who you are and what we can expect of the webinar today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maria. And good afternoon and good morning to those out west. Thank you so very much for joining us today on the Startup Canada webinar. I'm excited to be sharing with you some of our important findings about financial literacy among Canadian entrepreneurs and especially among women business owners. The financial literacy is particularly important at this time. For example, the Women's Entrepreneurship Knowledge Hub recently conducted consultations nationally about the impact of COVID-19 on women entrepreneurs. And when you read the draft summary of these consultations, financial literacy is mentioned frequently as an issue with respect to accessing federal financing and relief programs. This is not surprising. Previous research has shown a clear link between financial knowledge, financial decisions, and failure of small and especially among new firms. So what I would like to do today is to apply some insights from the Small Business Financing Research Program at the Telfer School of Management. What is unique about our research is that it's the only research program nationally and internationally of which I'm aware that specifically relates to self-employed individuals, small business owners, and their financial knowledge. In doing this, I'm privileged to be part of a great team of Telfer colleagues. Drs. Miwako Nitani, Barbara Orser, and Anusha Rostam Kalai are colleagues who have been a big part of this work. And this program of research is showing clear evidence of gender differences in financial knowledge, financial confidence, and financial behavior. As Maria mentioned, I'll also be showing new findings from the Scotiabank Women Initiative research. The Scotiabank study was conducted in this consultation with Barbara Orser and me, and more on this later. My goal today is to leave you with 3 takeaways. First, I'm going to highlight some new insights about financial literacy, especially as it relates to women business owners. Second, I'll point you to resources that can help you learn more about financial management. And third, I'll try to put these things together to offer some suggestions about how we might all get through this crisis and into recovery. But I'm going to start by making sure we're all on the same page about the two key concepts in the title of this talk. I'm going to start by coming to an understanding of what we know about women entrepreneurs and what we don't know. And then I'm going to try to come to an understanding so that we're all on the same page with respect to financial literacy. So let me start by summarizing what we know and what we don't know about women entrepreneurs. Now, going forward, my caution is that much of what I'll be talking about today relies on a binary measure of gender, male, female. I do understand that this is an imperfect way to address gender identity, but it is what is available in most of our national data sources. Also, some of what I say might challenge some preconceptions. So let me begin again by talking about women entrepreneurs and what we know and don't know about them. And there are two categories of women entrepreneurs that are worth considering. We know a lot about the 114,000 employer SMEs that are owned by women, but we know relatively little about the million self-employed women who don't have employees. And that's important because having employees or not impacts people's ability to take advantage of some of the relief programs that we see ahead in front of us. And these ideas, these concepts, these findings are well established. They're pretty much common knowledge among people who work, as I do, in researching this field, but maybe not by everybody. So first of all, women-owned firms are concentrated in the services sectors. And these sectors are the ones being hit hardest by this pandemic. We also know that the majority of women are self-employed, have no employees, and as I mentioned, this likewise affects being able to take advantage of relief programs. So it was really good yesterday to see the announcement about the new program from the federal government, the Regional Relief and Recovery Fund. This is going to fill some of the gaps. Excuse me. Women-owned firms are also small. And because they're small, they typically have fewer reserves than men-owned firms to weather the storm. Some good news, though, is that women-owned firms perform quite well in terms of adoption of digital technology. And they're also much more likely than men to introduce marketing innovations. These are interesting findings and useful findings as businesses pivot from the pre-COVID to the post-COVID worlds. As I said, these findings, these are well known, but we're only beginning to understand the impact of this pandemic on women entrepreneurs. For example, yesterday, the Women's Chamber of Commerce, working in collaboration with the Dream Legacy Foundation, released the report Falling Through the Cracks, Immediate Needs of Canada's Underrepresented. And they noted that among female founders who were part of the survey, 61% reported the loss of customers, contracts, and clients. Again, hopefully, the Regional Relief and Recovery Fund will address some of that, and it's good news. But I'd especially like to drill down on the point that women business owners are less likely to seek external financing. Because of that, it's likely that women business owners as a group are going to have fewer financial resources with which to weather this storm. So let me drill down on that by presenting this slide. And it's a bit busy, so let me just walk you through this slide. So this slide contains three groups of business owners. On the left, firms owned 100% by men. On the far right, firms owned 100% by women. And in between, firms owned 50-50 by men and women. And this summarizes the frequency with which each of those groups apply for 5 different types of financing. Debt in the red bar, leasing in the green bar, trade credit in the yellow bar, trade credit being the automatic credit you sometimes get when your suppliers give you 30 days or 60 days. It depends on the terms of financing, but you get free credit for a little while. That small green bar is equity. That includes venture capital, but it also includes business angels. It includes crowdfunding, equity crowdfunding anyway. It includes family and friends investments in small firms. The blue bar is government. So there are a couple of things from this chart that are striking. First of all, no matter what category of financing we're talking about, women-owned SMEs are less likely to apply for those types of financing than men-owned SMEs or 50-50 owned SMEs. So that's an issue. That goes back to what I said earlier about women possibly having fewer resources. Now, it's also possible that that lower likelihood of applying for financing is also due to some of those structural barriers. Perhaps firms and services where women are relatively concentrated don't actually need as much financing. And so there's some work we have to do to sort out what's at work here. What this chart also shows, and strikingly so, is the importance of debt. By debt, we basically mean bank financing. And these are summaries of those firms that are employer firms. We don't know a lot about self-employed employees, but among employer firms, debt is a really important source of financing. We have a lot of press, a lot of social media attention about equity financing. But in the scheme of things, the vast majority of applications for external financing have to do with debt. Let me see. So this chart, this slide, puts into perspective the different sources of financing. Just a few further comparisons. First of all, again, talking about employer firms, the flow of bank financing to small firms in Canada in 2017 ran about $58 billion. Again, by comparison, equity financing totaled about 3 to 5, venture capital financing, I should say. Venture capital financing totaled $3 to $5 billion, each year over the last several years. So bank financing essentially is 15 times more widely used than equity financing. This slide also raises several questions. Having applied for financing, what's the success rate? What's the success rate? When I meet with women entrepreneurs, one of the perceptions I often hear voiced is that banks are biased. And we often see reference to this in both social and mainstream media. Now, I do wonder if this discourages women business owners from seeking the kind of financing they need. What does the evidence say? So we'll look at loan turndown rates among employer firms in Canada, again in 2017. And what it says is the vast majority of loan applications from small business owners are approved. 90%, 90%, are approved, and just under 10% are turned down. Among firms owned 100% by men, 10.7% are turned down. Among firms equally owned by men and women, 9.7% are turned down. And among firms owned 100% by women, 7.2% are turned down. What we learn from this is SMEs owned by women are no less likely to have loan applications approved or rejected than men. At the end of the day, women business owners are less likely to apply for financing and at least as likely to get financing. So that's a bit of the overview of women-owned firms and how they compare. I'd like to switch gears and put us all on the same page with respect to financial literacy. So what is financial literacy and why is it important? Well, we as humans, as business owners, are not automatically gifted with financial knowledge. And our research confirms that self-employed individuals are no more knowledgeable than regular employees. And what is financial literacy? What do we mean by financial literacy? And this is a definition adopted by international organizations such as the World Bank, the OECD, and collectively, we recognize now 3 components of financial literacy. Some of us use the term financial literacy with financial knowledge, but financial knowledge is actually one component of financial literacy. A second component is financial confidence, our ability to put our knowledge into action, our willingness to put our knowledge into action. And financial knowledge and financial confidence interact with each other, and both of them interact with how we make financial decisions and how we behave in terms of our finances. So I'm going to ask you a question. How confident are you about your own small business financial knowledge? Would you consider yourself to be very knowledgeable, or knowledgeable, or fairly knowledgeable, or not very knowledgeable? Where would you put yourself? I'm going to ask you to hold that thought. In March of this year, Scotiabank Women Initiative released a major piece of research about financial literacy among Canadian owners and small businesses. And the emphasis was on women business owners. And Barbara Orser and I consulted on that project. This report is available for download from the Scotiabank Women's Initiative in the Knowledge Center. And you can read much of what I'm going to talk about in that report. But in going forward today, I'm going to highlight some of what I think are the key findings of this. So let's return to financial confidence. What did the Scotiabank study find about financial confidence? And now I'm going to show you an even busier slide. And we're going to take it in pieces. So if we look at the left side of that slide, what we see are those 4 categories I asked you to consider a few moments ago. Are you very knowledgeable, knowledgeable, fairly knowledgeable, or not very knowledgeable? That top bar on the left side reflects how women, business owners, ranked themselves. The bottom bar reflects how men, business owners, ranked themselves. By comparing the 2 bars, you can see that men business owners were much more likely to rank themselves as knowledgeable or very knowledgeable. Women business owners less likely to do so. This is one way of measuring it. I don't know where you fit in there, but you see that the differences that are typical of business owners by gender. Let's look at the right-hand side of the page. This was another way of measuring financial confidence among business owners. On the left-hand side is a list of 17 concepts that are specific to small business management. On the right-hand side, we show the percentage of men and women who rated themselves as 5, 6, or 7 on a 7-point scale, who rated themselves as knowledgeable about each of those 17 concepts. A couple of things that are interesting in that side of the slide. First of all, if we compare the two columns of numbers with each other, in every single case for each of the 17 financial concepts, men were more likely to rate themselves highly than women. What is also interesting is the number itself. I'd ask you to just focus on that row for debt financing and look for both men and women, how few people rate themselves as knowledgeable on that topic. Likewise, go up a few, sources of small business financing. Again, entrepreneurs, both men and women, more so women, are less likely to be confident of their knowledge of finance. So, recalling the question I just posed to you, now where do you fit into that continuum? And let me also say differently what I said before. So based on these findings, these analyses, we conclude that women are less confident, but we can say that differently. We could, of course, say that men are more confident, but there's a better way of saying it that I think is closer to the truth, and that is that men are more likely to be overconfident, and overconfidence is not a good thing. So just to drill down on overconfidence and underconfidence, let's go back to the second component of financial literacy, financial knowledge. To assess financial knowledge, the Scotiabank research team developed a purpose-built diagnostic to objectively measure small business knowledge, specifically the kinds of knowledge that are important in the context of small business. On average, women business owners did not score quite as highly as counterpart men, even after controlling for differences due to age, education, and other factors. And this result is consistent with the 2016 StatsCan study of financial knowledge among Canadians. Our study, the study with Scotiabank, is about small business owners. So we can measure both financial confidence and financial knowledge, and we can juxtapose these two concepts to get a diagram something like this. People can be low in confidence or high in confidence. People can be low in knowledge or high in knowledge. And those quadrants define different kinds of people. Okay, overconfident people, that's these guys and a few women, they think they know more than they know. They're unlikely to take advice. After all, they're confident, they're sure of themselves. They're more likely to trust their own judgment instead of listening to others. They're sure they can handle whatever situation arises. And as an educator, overconfident people are hard to teach. They don't think they need to learn more. But importantly, overconfident people are relatively more likely to make financial mistakes. And that's a finding documented throughout the literature on finance. Good news? Women are much less likely to be overconfident than men. And that's one piece of emerging evidence that women may be better managers of finance than men. One piece is that women business owners are more likely to maintain a budget than men. Another piece of research coming out of the UK is that women business owners were more likely to repay their loans during the 2007-2008 financial crisis. So there's emerging research about this. And that's kind of comforting at times like this. Underconfident people, they're less likely to act on their knowledge. These are individuals who may well know a lot about finance, but they're not sure of themselves. And maybe we think this may explain why women are less likely to apply for financing. They're not sure. These two concepts, overconfidence and underconfidence, hold implications for financial education. How we teach overconfident people has to be very different from how we teach underconfident people. One size just does not fit all. So with that as background, let me point you to some resources that by helping people to strengthen financial knowledge will also bolster their financial confidence. First of all, I want to refer you to Startup Canada. They have a publication called Resources for Women Entrepreneurs. And as it says there, it's a living and curated document about resources for women entrepreneurs, including about financial knowledge. It illustrates that we have a wealth of organizations with expertise around gender and small business. And many of the organizations listed provide gender-specific financial education. In addition, there are many regional and municipal economic development and small business support agencies. Here in Ottawa, we have Invest Canada, an organization absolutely committed to women entrepreneurs and to being inclusive. Invest Ottawa has strong ties to local angels, including a group of women-owned women angels. But I also want to commend you to the Scotiabank Women's Initiative. I believe in it. It includes a series of very specific and targeted learning aids that Barbara Orser and I and others have developed in conjunction with Scotiabank. These learning aids include access to capital, women-focused capital funds, valuing your business, working with your banker, budgeting, mentoring, and others. I'd particularly like to draw your attention to a financial readiness tool that was released yesterday by Scotiabank. This tool, among other things, allows you to compare your financial confidence and your financial knowledge with that of 1,000 other Canadian business owners. This tool then refers you to additional resources and tries to drill down on what specific kinds of financial knowledge might be most helpful. There are other resources. The small business support agencies I've mentioned, Scotiabank I've mentioned, Chartered Professional Accountants of Canada, online have web pages, web resources that help teach financial knowledge. And then there's digital financial software. I was listening to a webinar from the Recovery Project last week. And I was struck by a comment made by Rodney McDonald, who was also a board member of Startup Canada. And he made some statements that I found quite interesting. He said that 50% of new firms fail. And that's in normal times. He also said that small firms that use digital financial management software are 44% more likely to survive than firms that do not do so. So with that as background, what can we say about enabling our businesses to survive the COVID-19 crisis? First, I'd like to talk a little bit about the power of community. Research tells us that women-owned businesses are less likely to have advisory boards than businesses owned by men. Advisory boards are ways that you can build consortia to help you if you don't already have an advisory board Draw on your community connections to bring together a group of people who can help with your business. These can help you and advise you about their experiences with government programs, include on your advisory board an accountant, and lever your accountant's knowledge. Our research shows that most business owners underutilize their accountants. Accountants can help in a whole lot more ways than just doing your taxes once a year. Just by doing that, they know a lot about the financial situation of your business and can help with that. So bring together a consortium of complementary individuals. What nearby businesses can you identify that complement your own? How can you work together? I'd just like to cite an initiative I saw recently at the City of Toronto. Their Digital Main Street seems to be a great idea to specifically help brick and mortar businesses, very small businesses, less than 10 employees, to brand themselves and get online. Now this is available in Toronto, but it's an interesting concept. I'd encourage other jurisdictions to check it out. I'd also like you to consider partnering vertically. Work with your suppliers. Your suppliers don't want to lose a good customer. Work a win-win deal with your supplier, where your supplier might give you better terms of credit. Remember, women don't use trade credit as much. In return for your long-term loyalty to them. Remember also that a lease is a contract, much like debt. And landlords are expecting empty spaces in malls. So landlords, they too don't want to lose a good long-term tenant. So explore renegotiating your lease. Maybe you can come up with a win-win outcome. Maybe a longer term or variable payments, or even an equity share. Try partnering with your landlord. And then consider local equity investors, business angels, individuals who invest their personal money in other people's small firms. So I'm not talking about your family. These business angels may well be interested in a good firm that's temporarily facing short-term cash flow issues, but which in the long run is profitable and viable, and they may wish to consider becoming a partner with you. I'd also like you to look at other sources of borrowing. Stay away from high-cost, short-term lenders. Stay away from credit card borrowing. Those are very high-cost ways of raising money. Do consider your attitudes to debt. Research does show that women tend to dislike debt financing. And of course, governments have responded with a variety of relief programs. By all means, use them if you qualify. And remember too, that Canada has been supportive of small businesses for a long time. And there are programs that have been available long before COVID. The Small Business Financing Program has been available for 60 years. And they provide small businesses with loan guarantees on bank borrowing. The Business Credit Availability Program, the loan guarantees for small and medium-sized enterprises, and the co-lending program for SMEs, all administered by BDC and I think EDC, are available. So we're approaching our time. But as I close, I do want to recognize the partners that we have not yet mentioned in our work on financial literacy. We have also partnered with Business Development Bank of Canada, the Ottawa Community Loan Fund, and of course, Scotiabank. I also want to mention, and I have to mention, that our research is funded by multiple grants from the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council of Canada. Thank you. Finally, I want to thank all of you for participating. I'm looking forward to your comments and questions. And maybe this is also a time we can use for you to share your successes and what has and hasn't worked for you in this time of COVID. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Riding. Thank you for sharing all your knowledge about financial literacy with us today. And as Professor Riding mentioned, please feel free to use the Q&A function, the chat function, to share with you any comment, feedback, any question, specific question about your own business or general question about finance literacy that you want to ask. Please feel free to ask any questions. Great. Okay, so we have, yes, wait, one question here. So there's a comment about, you mentioned that women-owned small and medium-sized businesses are better at adopting digital technology. Can you point me to the research? It would be very useful to have. Thank you.
I didn't say they were better, but they're as good as men.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I'll have to get back to you on the exact source of that research.
Wonderful. And as soon as Professor Riding shared with us, I will share with all of the audience. Thank you. We have another question. Which are the most important KPIs that I need to make data-driven decisions about the financial future of my business?
The key indicators to make financial decisions. You know, can you give me a bit of context for that? Those are going to vary by industry and firm size. Now, cash flow is universally one of the biggest issues in small business management. And managing cash flows is aided immeasurably by digital financial management tools.
She says that it's a small business in the tech industry.
Yeah, I'm afraid that doesn't tell me a lot. Again, if that person would like to contact me offline, again, I'd be happy to chat with whoever that might be.
Wonderful. I will give her your information in the private chat. Thank you. Another question. What is your opinion about online lenders?
Negative.
Okay, great. Another question, I think this is related to what you explained before. Which criteria should I consider when deciding if I should apply for a short-term loan or long-term loan for my business?
The answer is it depends on what you're going to use the loan for. You know, if you're going to be using the loan to bridge your receivables with your payables, then you should by all means be thinking about a short-term loan. If you're going to be using the loan to invest in equipment or a permanent component of working capital, then a long-term loan. But certainly the day-to-day, month-to-month, week-to-week ebbs and flows of cash in and cash out, those indicate a short-term loan, a working capital loan, line of credit, operating loan, goes by different names.
Right, thank you, Professor Riding. What are the key milestones to achieve when transitioning from a bootstrap company to VC-backed firm?
Potential. Having in my experience, having a prototype that works. Having there's a US venture capital gave a talk a couple of years ago. And he said that, and I remember specifically because it was so impressive, he said what he looks for is something that's going to change the world.
Great, thank you for that. Another question, how good must my personal and business credit scores be to secure financing?
Vital. They're very important in securing financing. I'm just going to spend a moment talking about those two kinds of financing, bank loans and trade credit. And they work kind of together, because by paying your bills on time, paying your suppliers, you build a good credit score. And that information, that credit score is typically something that a bank would use in deciding whether or not to provide a loan. Likewise, when you have bank loans and you've paid them off successfully and diligently, your suppliers will use that information to determine whether or not or how much and on what terms to provide trade credit. So credit scores are a very important piece of the financing puzzle.
Thank you, Dr. Riding. Some of our participants are asking for your email to ask you more precise questions, and I will share it at the end of.
That's fine.
Wonderful, thank you so much. Okay, one more question. As in my experience, employee productivity has a big impact on business finance. However, I have always struggled on how to measure this key metric.
There are tools available online that will help you assess your productivity. Industry Canada has some of those tools. And I was playing with one actually a couple of weeks ago, and for the life of me, I can't remember where it was. But if you look onto online, I'm quite sure you'll be able to find productivity measurement tools.
Wonderful, thank you.
I can't vouch for how good they are.
Thank you. As Startup Canada, we will do that research, and we'll get back to the participants in this question as well.
Thank you.
Yes, there are many different tools, and I agree. Like it's not all of them are trustable, and it would be great to explore and get back to you on that. Great. So if more, could we have examples of digital financial management software that was mentioned?
Well, it was mentioned by Dr. Rodney McDonald, who's the Vice President of Intuit, who is the provider of Quicken Books, and that's what we use.
Great, great. Thank you so much, Professor Riding. So yeah, if we don't have more questions from our audience, we can wrap things up. Thank you so much, Professor, for this amazing presentation, for sharing all of your knowledge with us. Thank you for taking the time to share all your all of this research conducted, how comprehensive it is and valuable for all of us. To our great audience, thank you for joining us at the Women Entrepreneurs webinar series today. We hope you got valuable insights as we did about how to about all of the components of the moving parts of the financial aspect of your business. And stay tuned, please, for our next webinar, Women Entrepreneurs Wellbeing by Dr. Stephanie Gilbert, Professor at Shannon School of Business. This webinar series will be recorded and uploaded under the Women Entrepreneurs Program section in the Startup Canada webinar. So thank you everybody again today. I'm looking forward to our next webinar next Tuesday. Thank you so much. Thank you so much again, Professor Wright.
Thank you all.